Automatic CSS has a native integration with Bricks Builder, and in this training, I'm going to walk you through the very simple setup process to make sure that Bricks and Automatic CSS are playing nicely together. So let's go ahead and jump into the training environment. This is a brand new, fresh install on a local device. Nothing has been done so far. So if you're starting from scratch, I'm starting from scratch. We're going to be able to do this together. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Appearance and Themes. Bricks is a theme and not a plugin. If you're coming from the Oxygen world, you're used to installing Oxygen as a plugin. Bricks is a theme. So we're going to go to Themes, Add New, Upload Theme, and I am simply going to navigate to wherever I have stored my Bricks theme. Now, I would recommend when you're in your Bricks dashboard to download both the theme and the child theme. And what you'll see is that you have two files that need to be uploaded. The first one you're going to upload is the Bricks 1.5 RC or whatever version that you have, but not the child theme. Whatever the full theme version is, we're going to hit open and then install now. It's going to install that theme very quickly. You can go ahead and click activate. The next thing we're going to do is go back to Appearance and Themes, Add New, and we are going to upload the child theme. So now I'm choosing brickschild.zip. And without getting into too many details, it is best practice when a child theme is available to go ahead and install the child theme. It protects you. It doesn't limit you in any fashion. If you don't know why a child theme exists, it doesn't matter. You're better off having the child theme activated than not having the child theme activated. So go ahead and upload that child theme, install it, and make sure it is the active theme. So you can see Bricks child theme is the one that I have active. This is the source of truth for this normal Bricks theme is the source of truth for the developer. And then the child theme is the source of truth for your actual Bricks install. So that at any time, in case anything gets updated via the theme files for whatever reason, maybe you, maybe somebody on your team, maybe a developer you have to hire, anything that gets updated with Bricks won't overwrite those changes, okay? Now, as another best practice step, I would highly recommend that you just delete any other themes that are in here. It's not really a good idea to just have themes straggling and lingering around for no reason. So you should have a very clean themes area just like this when you're done. The next thing we're going to be able to do is install Automatic CSS. And it's very important that you go in this order. Don't install Automatic CSS before you install Bricks. Automatic CSS auto loads all of the classes into Bricks Builder. It can't do that if Bricks doesn't exist. So you have to make sure that Bricks exists, and then you can go ahead and install Automatic CSS. This time we're going to go to the plugins area. We're going to hit Add New, Upload Plugin, choose File, and I'm going to choose the Automatic CSS 2.0.zip. Click Install Now, and then activate the plugin. All right, that's going to go ahead and activate, and then we're going to go to Automatic CSS over here in the left panel. And we are going to start with our setup process by going through some of the Automatic CSS panels. If you've never set up Automatic CSS before, it's very simple. There is a lot here, but the good news is you don't have to touch most of it, at least not out of the box. Out of the box, everything will work very, very flawlessly. You only need to come and adjust these things in order to dial in behavior based on the outcomes you're trying to achieve. But nothing here really needs to be done in order for you to just get to work building. There are a couple things that you want to take note of before you get started though. One is your website width. You want to determine, maybe you have a design you're working from, or maybe you have a preferred website width that you like to work with. You just need to know what that value is, and you need to set it here inside of Automatic CSS. By default, the website width will be 1280 pixels. I tend to prefer something a little bit bigger, around the 1366 mark. 1366 is kind of the sweet spot between the desktop and laptop resolutions. You can go bigger to 1440 if you want to. The higher you go, the more work you're going to have to do to make sure that your website is compatible across different devices, and the bigger gap you're going to have between the largest breakpoint and the next breakpoint down. The larger that gap is, the harder things are to manage. In the future, we'll be able to add custom breakpoints, but even in Bricks, you can't add a custom breakpoint yet. In Oxygen, you can't add a custom breakpoint. So we don't do it in Automatic CSS yet either. So I would choose a reasonable value for your website width here, and then you're going to hit Save Changes. The next thing you're going to do is set up your color palette. Now, in Automatic CSS, at the current time, we have the primary, secondary, accent, base, and shade palettes. The primary palette is your website's action color. The secondary palette is the next most used color on the website. The accent palette is for the least used color on the website, and then your base color is for whatever kind of darker background type, if you have any dark background sections or your dark text color, things like that. And of course, you're going to get shades generated for all of these. So even if you're putting in a dark color for your base, you're going to have light versions of that color available to you throughout the website. No problem whatsoever. Now, when you look at all of the shades that are available, sometimes people feel like this can be a little bit overwhelming. Again, just remember that you don't have to touch anything right here. All of the shades are automatically generated for you. If you don't like how a specific shade looks, you can come and adjust it and then move on with your life. You don't have to go through and try to set all of this stuff up like from the very beginning. Everything is adjustable as you go throughout your website build. You can even adjust these things after your website build is done. So what I would recommend that you do is get your brand colors. Maybe you have a brand style guide you're working from. Maybe somebody just emailed you the colors of their website, or you already know the colors of your own website that you're working on, and plug those into primary, secondary, accent, base. And then the shade color is your neutrals. And the only time you would want to change this value right here is if you want to slightly tint your neutral grays. So if you don't like pure gray, a lot of people don't. They like a little bit of blue in their grays, or they like a little bit of purple in their grays. You can simply choose a dark blue as this color right here, the shade color. It's not going to influence black, and it's not going to influence white. Black and white are always black and white. But all of those neutral values in between will get tinted by whatever color you're choosing here. Again, that is completely optional to you. Once you've configured your palette, you can go ahead and save changes. The next thing you're going to do is come to the Typography tab, and you're going to check out your root font size option here. This is just another decision you're going to want to make. By default, it's set to 62.5%. In Bricks, you can set it to 62.5, you can set it to 100. Automatic CSS is unique in that it allows you to set a custom value as well. It can be 62.5 or it can be 100. A lot of frameworks don't let you choose this value. Just to explain very quickly, if you set your root font size to 62.5%, then one rem will equal 10 pixels, and it makes doing math very easy. So if you want a reference of 20 pixels, you use 2 rem. 30 pixels is 3 rem. 24 pixels is 2.4 rem. The math is very, very easy. If you have 100% as your root font size, the math is going to be by 16s. So if you want 20 pixels, you're going to have to do the math to figure out what that equates to in rem. And you kind of come out with a bit more ugly decimals a lot of times. But again, that's personal preference. This is completely up to you. You can't really go wrong here as long as you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, I would leave it at 62.5% by default or 100%, either way. When we get into the Bricks setup, we're going to talk about the only thing that will cause breakage here is if Bricks thinks that that value is different from the value that ACSS thinks it is. That's basically the only time this is ever going to really matter, okay? Other than that, it's just personal preference. So if you want to leave it at the default, this is yet another panel where you don't have to touch anything. You don't have to set up anything by default. Notice that everything else in this panel, base text sizing, base heading sizing, all of this is set up by default to work out of the box. You only need to come here and make adjustments if you need to make adjustments based on the goals that you're trying to achieve with your design. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to hit Save Changes. We're done here. As far as the Automatic CSS panel, you see how easy that is. You choose what your website width is, you configure your color palette, and then you double check your root font size, make sure it's set to whatever value you want it to be set to. So now that we're done with configuring the basics of Automatic CSS, we're going to go ahead and jump right into Bricks' template builder, and we're going to work on our header template. So we're going to go into the templates area, click Add New, type header, And then on the right-hand side under template type, we're going to want to choose header here as well. And this is going to assign a default header tag inside of Bricks. We don't, thankfully, have to worry about creating a div or container and changing the HTML tag to header. Bricks handles all of that for you. So I'm going to hit publish, and then I'm going to hit edit with Bricks. Now, before we actually start building our header, we're going to take this opportunity to set up some of the global theme styles inside of Bricks to make sure that they match with Automatic CSS. This is once again an area where there's very, very little setup that needs to happen, but it is an important step in the process. So we're going to click the settings wheel. We're going to click on theme styles. You're going to notice that there are no themes. This dropdown is completely empty. You're going to click the plus sign. You're going to name the theme. You can name your theme style whatever you want it to be. It can be the name of your client. That would be a good option. It could be the name of your agency. That would probably also be a good option. It can be any name you want it to be. I'm going to use my agency name, Digital Gravy, and then I'm going to click create. And you're going to see once I create that template that I get a lot of different things that I can customize. And just as with ACSS, this Bricks panel can look a little bit overwhelming until you realize that you hardly have to do anything in here whatsoever. You only have to do a couple little things and then we're off to the races. The first thing is we have to assign this theme style to an area of the website. You can assign themes to different areas of the website. This is going to be our primary overarching theme. So we want to assign this theme to every page of the website. So under conditions, you're going to choose entire website. It's as simple as that. I'm going to go ahead and click save. The next thing you're going to do is come down to element container. This is a really important step in this process. Your container width needs to match the value, and I'm going to go back just to show you and help tie these two things together. In Automatic CSS viewport website width, remember this? We set it to 1366. Well, guess what? I need to set the container by default width to 1366 here as well. If those two values don't match, your auto grids will break. Your VP Max class, your VP Max variable in Automatic CSS will not work properly. These two values need to be exactly the same. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Now listen, we're done with the Bricks setup. That is all that needs to happen to integrate Bricks and Automatic CSS properly. But I want to show you a couple things because you can create problems where they didn't previously exist. One area you may create problems is with colors, this colors tab right here. Off the bat, you might think this is where I set up my palette inside of Bricks, and that is not the case. I want you to read this blue alert. It says applicable to heading or button style setting only. Create and use global colors through your own custom color palette. Basically, that means elsewhere, not here, right? And we're going to take a look at the color palette in just a minute because you're going to be surprised. It's already set up for you. So do not, I would highly recommend, do not put anything, any values in these fields right here. They're not necessary. You're not going to use them. You're going to use Automatic CSS. Let Automatic CSS do its thing. Don't try to do anything with this color setup area. Under links, you might be tempted to start styling links here. Let Automatic CSS take care of that for you. Automatic CSS handles your default link styling and gives you classes for other various link styling. Under typography, here's your 62.5%. You only need to change this if you changed the value inside of Automatic CSS, okay? Leave this blank by default if you didn't touch that default value. And then don't come down here and start styling headings a certain way. Heading styling is handled by Automatic CSS. So let Automatic CSS do its thing. Same thing with sections. I would not recommend touching anything in the sections. Don't touch anything else in the containers. Don't try to put padding values and margin values in here. Don't try to do anything with the block or the div element. Leave everything as you find it, and you will be smooth sailing, let's say. All right? Everything else, just pretty much leave it as you find it, unless you know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it and what the implications are. Okay, so this completes the theme style setup for Bricks. We're already editing the header template so we can get right to work on our header. Now, one thing is important to note here, like I mentioned a second ago, but I'm going to mention it again. Bricks automatically puts a header tag on your header, so you don't have to change the header tag. If you come in here and add something like a block, and then you go in content HTML tag and choose header, which you would have to write it custom by itself. You will have 2 header tags on your site. You don't want that. So we're going to delete that element, and we are going to get started with our header build. I would recommend putting a block element as your first element on the page. So we're going to do that. We're going to add our block. This is a new element inside of Bricks 1.5. Basically, it's a full width div. That's all it is. It's a full width div. Yes, it's set to flex by default, yada, yada, yada. But the general behavior is just it's a full width div. So it's a little bit of a shortcut over adding a div and then changing the div's width to 100%, yada, yada, yada. You get the point, right? After you've added your block, you're going to want to use a pad header class on this header. So we're going to do pad header, and you're going to see all of my sizing options. I'm going to choose medium. And what the pad header class does, this is unique to Automatic CSS. It gives you your medium padding top and bottom, but on the left and right, it actually gives you your default section padding. And this is very important to make sure that your header content is always in a perfect alignment with all of your other page content. So on mobile devices, you're going to have the exact same gap in your header as you do on your general page content. That's very, very important. After I put a pad header class, I need to make a decision. Am I going to be creating a full width header, or am I going to be creating a page width header that's 1366 or whatever value you set as your page width? If I want a full width header, I can simply start adding elements. So for example, I could add text, and we'll just say pretend this is a logo. Okay, so pretend that is a logo. Notice it's not touching the edge of the screen. Why? Because of that pad header class is protecting it with my left-right section padding. So if I want to save and go look at this on the front end, you will see that I can add a logo, I can add my navigation, whatever else you want to put in your header. You're good to go. This is a full width header. We're going to inspect it here just so you can see, and I'm going to get us out of mobile mode, and we're going to choose this. Look at that green and that purple stretch all the way across the page. This is a full width header with padding on the top and the bottom and section padding on the left and the right. Now, what if you want a page width header? What you're going to do is you're going to copy this, or it wouldn't exist in the first place. For a page width header, you're going to add a container inside of your block. So the block stays the same no matter what. Now we're going to come down and add a container. A container element inside of Bricks is just a div that is set to be your page width by default. So you know how a block is full width by default, a container is page width by default. I have a full tutorial on sections versus containers versus divs in Bricks. So I'm going to now paste my pretend this is a logo inside that container, and I'm going to save. Now, on the front end, you're going to notice that there's actually no visible change here. So I'm going to refresh. Nothing appears to have changed. But if we inspect our container, we can see that that purple does not go all the way across the screen anymore. We have a page width header. The problem is our container is not centered. We need to center our container. Thankfully, Automatic CSS makes this very easy. So with my container selected, I'm going to use the class center self. So it's basically like center myself. And I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to save. And then when we refresh on the front end, you notice that our container, and I'll get you our boundaries there with the purple outline, is now perfectly centered on the page, and it is our page width of 1366. So all is well in the world. I can now start adding my logo. I can add my navigation. I now have a workable header. If you want your header to have a background color, it's as simple as popping on a background color class. So we could do like BG, base, ultra, dark, give us a nice dark header. If we want all of our text to be white, just add text white. And now you have a nice dark header. We refresh that on the front end, and this is what you get. Your header is done. Now, you may be asking, Kevin, what about the skip link? I want a skip link for accessibility. How do I go about adding that? Well, when we first did our integration with Bricks, like the very first integration, we were working on making skip links manually. But Bricks has a skip link option by default. I'm going to show it to you. It's back here in the settings. You don't have to enable it, which is why we haven't talked about it yet. It is enabled by default. You can disable it, however. So disable skip links. I would recommend not disabling this because look at this. I'm going to put a, let's put a link in our, let's make this a link. Pretend this is a logo. Let's make this a link. So I am going to link to external URL and we'll just link it to Google. Okay. If it would help if I put in the correct URL parameters. There we go. And I'm going to open this in a new tab and I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to refresh on the front end. You can see that that is a link. It opens in a new tab. Now, if I try to use tab navigation, before this link is focused on, there should be a skip link. So we're going to tab. There it is right there. Skip to main content. Notice it's there by default. Notice that it's already pre-styled with your Automatic CSS color scheme. That is because Bricks, the default skip link in Bricks is now controlled by Automatic CSS out of the box. You don't have to manually add a skip link. It's absolutely phenomenal. So less work for you, follows the perfect philosophy of ACSS, which is Automatic CSS. These things are automatically taken care of for you. You now have Bricks working with Automatic CSS seamlessly. You are ready to go. You can start building your site and then you can make whatever adjustments you need from there. If you have any questions, obviously we have one of the best private communities on the internet as far as a support group goes. So go into the ACSS support community, ask your questions away. There's full documentation in there as well. You can comment below on the YouTube channel if you'd like. I respond to every single comment. And that is it for this tutorial. I hope you love ACSS. I hope you love Bricks, and I hope you love using them together. Peace.